All right, thank you guys. Welcome to our NBA video here today for Wednesday, June 16th. My name is Brock Page and I do sports picks for free right here on YouTube. And if you want to see which one of these YouTube picks I'm actually betting on personally here today, don't forget to check me out on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage. Now guys, we're coming fresh off a winning day on my Patreon website yesterday. And that's going to improve our record to 5-1 in our last six $1.99 daily best plays on that Patreon page. And if you want to access today's $1.99 daily best play, it's only going to cost you just $1.99. And just keep in mind, if you sign up for a membership on Patreon here today, you're going to get access to that content all the way through the end of June. The earlier in the month you sign up, the better. Now, we've also gone 3-1 in our last four MLB tier package picks on that Patreon website as well. And the good news is we have another MLB tier package pick going off here this evening. We currently have over 1,075 members who are signed up and active on that page. And if you want to join those folks and get in on the action, link for that site is in the description section below. And once again, that's patreon.com/BrockPage. With that, guys, got ourselves two NBA playoff games here tonight. So let's go ahead and dive into it. We're going to start with the Hawks taking on the Sixers, Game 5. And that's going to be a 7:30 p.m. Eastern tip-off in Philly. Now, this series is tied up at 2 games apiece. Philadelphia's -6.5 in this one at the Wells Fargo Center. Totals 224, juice to the under. If you like the Atlanta Hawks in an upset on the road here, they're plus 215 for some money line cash. Now, Atlanta held the Sixers to just 100 total points in Game 4. The Hawks are also in the top 10 in the NBA in fewest points allowed per contest. They've really done a nice job covering the point spread here recently as well. Out of Atlanta's last 11 ball games, they successfully covered the number 8 times, which is good for 73% in that particular time frame. The Hawks are also one of the better rebounding teams in the playoffs right now. They currently rank in the top 10 in both offensive and defensive rebounding. Now, make no mistake, this is a Hawks team that's led by Trae Young. You know, Trae is the heartbeat of this team. He's scoring over 28 points a night in the playoffs, along with double-digit assists. Now, the young point guard is also drilling over 90% of his free throws. Meanwhile, Bogdan Bogdanovic is averaging 16 postseason points a game himself. 5 boards, 3 assists a night for Bogey. And one more thing to add defensively for Atlanta here. They're in the top 5 in defensive three-point percentage. Top 10 in third quarter points allowed on the road. Now, they're taking on a Philly club who failed to cover the number in 3 out of their last 6 ball games. Of course, Danny Green is still out indefinitely. And Joel Embiid, he's officially listed as probable, although you got to keep in the back of your mind, he's still struggling a bit with that knee injury. And it's really tough to tell where his pain threshold is. I mean, any particular hard contact play, could really sideline him. Now, I'll tell you what, I'll be honest with you, there's not a ton of weak points to make against Philly. Although they do rank in the bottom half of the league in both third and fourth quarter scoring. Now, the Sixers do also find themselves in the bottom 10 defensively in second quarter points allowed. So overall, I do think the Sixers should win this ball game outright. They should win it straight up. But 6.5 points is an awful lot to ask given the resiliency of Atlanta. They've been ultra competitive in this series. Now, total-wise, Philadelphia has gone 70% to the over in their last 10, with 2 of those overs coming against Atlanta in this very series. The Sixers are officially 24-17 to the over at the Wells Fargo Center. Meanwhile, Atlanta's seen 3 out of their last 6 get over the line themselves, and that includes a rare over against the New York Knicks. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward the underdog Atlanta Hawks plus 6.5 and the over 224. With that, guys, we're going to jump into our next and final matchup. It is going to be Clippers versus the Jazz Game 5. And that's going to be a 10 p.m. Eastern start time in Utah. Now, this series is all knotted up at 2 games apiece. The Jazz are -3 at home, totals 222. And as good as Utah looked in both games 1 and 2, well, games 3 and 4 have been a completely different story. They're actually giving up a bunch of points in this series, despite being tied up at 2 games apiece. Now, Utah's allowing 118 points a game in this very series. Meanwhile, offensively, they've actually been held to 112 points or less in 3 out of this series' 4 games. Now, Mike Conley, he's still questionable with a hammy. And although it's really tough to nitpick at this Utah team, they're very good in many different facets of the game. They do rank in the bottom half of the league defensively in fourth quarter points allowed. Now, they are taking on a Clipper team who's been really good against the number here recently. Out of Los Angeles' last 9 postseason games, they've actually successfully covered the point spread 7 times. And that's good for 78% during that stretch. LA's currently leading the NBA offensively in both three-point percentage and shooting from the foul line. Kawhi Leonard's dropping over 30 points a night in the playoffs, 7 rebounds, 4 assists for Kawhi. Meanwhile, Paul George is scoring over 24.5 postseason points a game himself, 8 boards, 5 assists for playoff P. And, Paul George, playoff P? I think they called him that at one point in his career. I don't know why. But as good as the Clippers can be offensively, they're equally as dominant on the defensive end, if not more. They're currently leading the NBA in defensive rebounding. They're also in the top 3 in fewest points allowed. They're giving up just 107 points a night when they travel. And when it comes to the number in this one, 5 out of the Clippers' last 8 ball games stayed under the line. They've also gone 23 and 18 to the under when they travel. Meanwhile, the Jazz are 70% to the under in their last 10 games with Los Angeles. I'm going to lean toward the underdog, LA Clippers +3 and the under 222. And with that, guys, now it's time to jump into our very quick pick recap, powered to you by my Patreon website. I like Atlanta +6.5 over 224. And I like the LA Clippers +3 and the under 222. And one final reminder that we are 5-1 in our last 6 $1.99 daily best plays on my Patreon website. We're also 3-1 in our last 4 Major League Baseball tier package picks on that Patreon page as well. And if you found yourself really enjoying this video here today, please feel free to give it a thumbs up by smashing that like button. And if you're new here today or this week, please feel free to welcome yourself to the Brock Page betting community by hitting that subscribe button as well. I'd love to connect with you on a daily basis. With that, guys, now it's time to jump into some shout outs to our top 10 YouTube commenters over the past couple of days or so. Shout out to Trap Boy Sr., Pay DJ Life, Corey Silva, South Sack, Orlando Young, Barry Davidson, Isaiah Tanner, Harry Jackson, Patrick Sarayan, and last but certainly not least, got to give a shout out to my man, Thomas Mathias Jr. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on Patreon. If you guys do end up getting a package here today on my Patreon website, just keep in mind, Patreon's going to bill you the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. So the earlier in the month you sign up, the better. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. I really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, happy Wednesday to you. Happy hump day to you. And I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage.